The space station was massive. It floated in the darkness of space like a city made of metal and light. Ships from 100 different worlds came and went through its many docking ports. This was the Galactic Assembly Station, where leaders from across the galaxy met to discuss peace, trade, and the future of all species. Park Do-hyun stood at the window of his small transport ship. He could not see the station, but he could hear it. The hum of its engines traveled through space and into his bones. He could feel the vibrations of countless ships moving around them. His ears picked up the distant chatter of communication, signals bouncing between vessels. Do-hyun had been blind for 5 years now. A plasma explosion during the Terran-Korvax War had taken his sight forever. But in losing his eyes, he had gained something else. His other senses had grown sharp like knives. He could hear a person's heartbeat from across a room. He could detect lies by listening to the tiny changes in someone's voice. Special implants in his ears let him use sound to build a picture of the world around him. "Brother, we are docking now," said a soft voice beside him. Do-hyun turned toward his sister. Vela was not human. She belonged to a species called the Morvani. Her skin was covered in rough, gray-green scales. Her face was not balanced like human faces. One eye sat higher than the other. Her nose was flat, and small horns grew from her forehead. By the standards of most galactic species, she was considered ugly, hideous, even, but to Do-hyun, she was simply his sister. 15 years ago, a Morvani colony ship had crashed on Earth. Most passengers died. Among the survivors was a small, scared child. The Park family had taken her in when no one else would. They raised her alongside their son. They gave her a name, a home, and love. Now Vela was 26 years old and one of the best xenobiologists in human space. She studied alien life forms and understood biology in ways that amazed even the most educated scientists. But the galaxy did not care about her mind. They only saw her face. "Are you nervous?" Do-hyun asked. Vela was quiet for a moment. "A little. They will stare at me. They always do. Let them stare. We are not here to make friends." The ship shook gently as it connected to the station's docking port. Do-hyun picked up his walking cane. He did not really need it to move around, but it helped others understand his condition. Sometimes, letting people underestimate you was useful. They walked through the docking tube and into the station. Immediately, Do-hyun's enhanced hearing picked up dozens of conversations happening around them. He heard the click of expensive shoes on metal floors. He heard the rustle of silk robes. He smelled perfumes that cost more than most people earned in a year. And he heard the whispers. "Look at that. A human with a stick. Is he broken? What is that thing beside him? It looks like it crawled out of a sewer. Earth sends the strangest representatives. A blind man and a monster." Do-hyun kept walking. His face showed nothing. Beside him, Vela's scales shifted color slightly. A sign of stress that only those who knew Morvani biology would recognize. They made their way to the registration area. A tall alien, with silver skin and 4 arms, sat behind a desk. It looked at them with obvious distaste. "Names and species," it said in a bored voice. "Park Do-hyun, human, and this is Vela Park, Morvani." The alien's eyes widened slightly. "The Morvani is registered under a human family name? She is my sister," Do-hyun said simply. The alien made a strange sound that might have been a laugh. "How unusual. Your quarters are in Section 7. The welcome banquet begins in 4 hours." It handed them 2 small cards. "Try not to cause any disturbances." They walked away from the desk. Do-hyun could feel the eyes following them. He could hear more whispers, more laughs. The galactic elite had already decided what they were. A broken human, and his ugly pet. A new voice cut through the noise. A woman rushed toward them. She was human, dressed in the formal uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her name was Kim Yuna. and she had been stationed at the assembly for 3 years. "I am so glad you made it," Yuna said, hugging them both. "The journey was not too difficult?" "It was fine," Do-hyun said. "How are things here?" Yuna's smile faded slightly. "Tense. There are many species who do not want humanity to gain full membership in the Council. They see us as newcomers, threats to their power." She glanced around and lowered her voice. "And there are those who would do anything to stop our progress." Do-hyun nodded slowly. This was why they had really come. 2 months ago, he had intercepted strange coded messages while working at the military intelligence office. The messages spoke of a plan, an event that would happen at the Unity Summit, something that would hurt humanity badly. He had told his superiors, but they did not believe him. A blind analyst? What could he know? So Do-hyun had decided to come himself, and Vela had refused to let him go alone. "Have you learned anything new?" Do-hyun asked quietly. "Not yet," Yuna admitted. "But something feels wrong. Too many private meetings. Too many nervous faces. Whatever is being planned, it will happen soon." They reached their quarters. The rooms were small and plain, clearly meant for lesser guests. Do-hyun did not mind. He had lived in far worse places during the war. "Rest for now," Yuna said. "I will come get you before the banquet. And please, both of you, be careful. Not everyone here wishes us well." After she left, Vela sat down heavily on one of the beds. Her scales had turned a darker shade, a sign of deep worry. "Brother, maybe this was a mistake. They hate us already. How can we possibly find the truth here?" Do-hyun sat beside her. He could not see her face, but he could hear the sadness in her voice. He could feel the slight trembling in her shoulders. "Do you remember what Father used to say?" he asked. Vela was quiet, then spoke softly. "The loudest laugh often hides the deepest fear." Exactly. They laugh at us because they do not understand us. They mock what they cannot control. But that is their weakness, not ours. He put his hand on her arm. "We see what they cannot, Vela. I see truth in voices and heartbeats. You see truth in biology and science. Together, we will find what is hidden here." Vela took a deep breath. Her scales slowly returned to their normal color. "Together," she agreed. Outside their window, the great station hummed with life. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds went about their business, never knowing that 2 of the most underestimated beings in the galaxy had just arrived. The game had begun, and Park Do-hyun intended to win. The banquet hall was the largest room Do-hyun had ever been in. His echolocation implants painted a picture of vast space, high ceilings, and hundreds of bodies moving about. The air was thick with strange smells. Foods from distant worlds, alien perfumes, and the sharp scent of expensive drinks. Vela walked close beside him, her arm linked with his. She described what she saw in quiet whispers. Crystal chandeliers that floated without any support. Tables covered in white cloth and golden plates. Servants from a dozen different species carrying trays of colorful foods. "Everyone is looking at us," she murmured. "I know," Do-hyun replied. He could feel their gazes like heat on his skin. He could hear the sudden drops in conversation as they passed. They found their assigned table near the back of the hall, far from the important guests. Yuna was already there, looking uncomfortable in her formal dress. "You both look wonderful," she said, though her voice was tight with worry. Do-hyun wore a simple black suit. Vela had chosen a blue dress that complemented her scales. She had spent an hour choosing it, hoping to look presentable. Now, surrounded by aliens in glittering gowns and jeweled robes, she felt small and plain. The banquet began with speeches. Various ambassadors stood and spoke about peace and cooperation. Their words were pretty, but empty. Do-hyun listened, not to what they said, but to how they said it. He noticed the hesitations, the false notes, the carefully hidden tensions. Then a new figure took the stage. Do-hyun heard the room grow quiet with respect. Or, perhaps fear. "That is Ambassador Crix," Yuna whispered. "He represents the Selvarii. They are one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They control most of the trade routes in this sector." Crix's voice was smooth like oil. He spoke of tradition and order. He spoke of how the galaxy must be protected from those who would disrupt its balance. His words seemed innocent enough, but Do-hyun heard the poison underneath. After the speeches, the mingling began. Guests moved between tables, forming groups and having conversations. Do-hyun and Vela stayed at their table, watching and listening. It did not take long for trouble to find them. Well, what do we have here?" The voice was Crix's. Do-hyun turned toward the sound. He could not see the ambassador, but he could hear him perfectly. Crix's heartbeat was slow and confident. Several others accompanied him, their breathing quick with excitement. They expected entertainment. "Ambassador," Yuna said, standing up. "How kind of you to visit our table." "I simply had to see for myself," Crix said. "Earth's famous representatives. A blind man and a... What species is that again? I cannot quite tell. It looks like several animals mixed together badly." Laughter erupted from his followers. Vela's arm tightened on Do-hyun's, but she said nothing. "Vela is Morvani," Do-hyun said calmly. "And she is my sister." "Sister?" Crix's voice dripped with amusement. "How desperate Earth must be to adopt such creatures. Tell me, does it do tricks? Can it fetch things?" More laughter. Louder this time. Other guests were turning to watch. No one moved to help. Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept it locked away. "Ambassador, I believe you have better things to do than insult guests at a peace summit." "Insult? I am simply asking questions. For example, I am curious why Earth sends a broken soldier to represent them. Can you even see this food? Or do you just smell it like an animal?" Crix moved suddenly. Do-hyun heard the shift in air. The tap of a foot. His cane was kicked away, sent clattering across the floor. The room gasped, then fell silent. "Oh dear," Crix said with false concern. "How clumsy of me. Someone should help the poor blind human find his stick." No one moved. Vela started to stand, but Crix was faster. He grabbed her bag and turned it upside down. Papers scattered everywhere. Research documents, notes, data cards. Her life's work spilled across the dirty floor. "And what is this garbage? Does the creature think it is a scientist?" Crix picked up a paper and pretended to read it. Such big words for such an ugly beast. "Did someone help you write this? Or did you copy it from real researchers?" Tears formed in Vela's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her scales had turned almost black with shame and rage. Crix looked around the room with a satisfied smile. "This is what Earth sends us? Their damaged goods and their garbage? Perhaps humanity is not ready for the Council after all. Perhaps they should stay on their little planet and leave important matters to their betters." The room was silent. Do-hyun could hear hundreds of heartbeats, but not a single person spoke in their defense. Even Yuna stood frozen, her diplomatic training unable to handle such open cruelty. Do-hyun moved slowly. He bent down and began gathering Vela's papers. One by one, he picked them up by touch alone. His movements were precise and unhurried. "Thank you, Ambassador," he said quietly, "for showing everyone your true character." Crix laughed. "What will you do, blind man? Report me? Cry to your human leaders? No one here cares about you. No one will ever care about you." He walked away, his followers trailing behind like loyal dogs. The conversations resumed as if nothing had happened, as if two people had not just been publicly destroyed. Yuna helped them gather the remaining papers. Her hands were shaking. "I am so sorry. I should have said something. I should have." "It is not your fault," Do-hyun said. "He has power here. You do not." They returned to their quarters in silence. The moment the door closed, Vela finally broke. She fell onto her bed and sobbed, her entire body shaking with pain. Do-hyun sat beside her. He could not see her tears, but he could hear every one of them hit the pillow. "Why do they hate me so much?" she whispered. "I have done nothing to them. I only wanted to help. I only wanted to show that I am more than my face." Do-hyun's heart ached for her. He remembered when they were children, when neighborhood kids had thrown rocks at Vela and called her monster. He remembered every cruel word she had endured growing up on Earth. And now, even among the stars, the cruelty followed her. "Sister," he said softly, "listen to me." Veja's sobs quieted slightly. "They see your scales and think you are ugly. They see my blindness and think I am useless. They look at surfaces because they are too lazy to look deeper." He took her hand. "But we know the truth. You are brilliant. You are kind. You are the best sister anyone could ask for. And I would not trade you for all the beautiful aliens in this galaxy." Vela squeezed his hand. "They will never accept us. We did not come here to be accepted. We came here for a reason. Remember? Someone is planning something terrible. And tonight, I learned something important." Vela sat up, wiping her eyes. "What do you mean?" "Crix. When he was mocking us, his heart rate never changed. He was completely calm, completely in control. That was not random cruelty, Vela. That was a performance. He wanted to humiliate us. He wanted to make sure no one takes us seriously." Vela's eyes widened. "You think he is involved in the conspiracy? I think he is at the center of it. And I think whatever they are planning, it happens soon." Do-hyun stood up, his face hard with determination. "They think we are nothing. Let them. While they laugh at the blind man and his ugly sister, we will find the truth. And when we do, we will make them choke on every word they said tonight." Vela looked at her brother. Despite everything, she felt something warm growing in her chest. "Hope. What do we do now?" Do-hyun smiled grimly. "Now, we hunt." The next 3 days were busy. While other delegates attended parties and made deals, Do-hyun and Vela worked in the shadows. During the day, they pretended to be exactly what everyone expected. Vela attended scientific presentations, sitting quietly in the back rows where no one would notice her. Do-hyun accompanied Yuna to diplomatic meetings, playing the role of a harmless assistant. They let people ignore them. They let people forget they existed. But at night, they transformed. Do-hyun discovered that his blindness was actually an advantage on the station. Security cameras were everywhere, watching every hallway and room. But they were designed to see, not to hear. When Do-hyun moved through dark maintenance corridors where cameras had trouble working, no one could track him. His echolocation worked perfectly in complete darkness. His footsteps were silent from years of military training. He spent hours sitting in corners of busy rooms, listening to conversations that people thought were private. His enhanced hearing could pick up whispers from 30 meters away. He learned secrets. He gathered information. On the second night, he heard something important. 2 Selvari officials were talking in a private alcove, thinking they were alone. They did not know that Do-hyun was sitting in a dark corner, just behind them. "Is everything ready for the ceremony?" one asked. "Almost. The weapon has been hidden. No scanner can detect it. And the target? He will be sitting in his usual place. It will look like a natural death. By the time anyone realizes what happened, we will be long gone." "Good. The council cannot be allowed to accept those humans. Everything would change." Do-hyun kept his breathing slow and steady. His heart wanted to race, but he controlled it. Now he knew the shape of the plan. An assassination during the closing ceremony. But who was the target? Meanwhile, Vela made her own discoveries. Her Morvani biology gave her abilities that most species did not know about. She could see in spectrums of light invisible to other eyes. She could detect chemical traces that others would miss. And she was immune to many poisons that would kill other species instantly. She used these gifts to explore restricted areas. During a tour of the station's medical facility, she slipped away and found a locked laboratory. Inside, she discovered traces of a rare compound. Her scientific knowledge told her exactly what it was: a neural disruptor agent. In small doses, it would cause heart failure. It would look completely natural, and it would leave no evidence. She collected samples carefully, storing them in hidden pouches in her dress. No one stopped her. No one even looked at her. She was just the ugly Morvani. After all, surely she could not understand anything important. On the third night, a ship arrived at the station. Do-hyun heard the excitement spreading through the halls. High Chancellor Morath is here, Yuna told them. He is the leader of the Progressive Coalition. He has been pushing for human membership in the Council for years. Many species hate him for it. Teleconsi, tell me about him, Do-hyun said. He is old and wise. He believes that new species bring new ideas, new strength. He has made many enemies, but he has also made progress. If not for him, humans would still be locked out of galactic politics. Do-hyun nodded slowly. The pieces were falling into place. I think I know who the target is. That night, they met in their quarters with Yuna and one more person. Lee Taewon had arrived on a separate transport, listed as a security contractor. He was tall and strong, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He and Do-hyun had served together in the war. They trusted each other completely. So let me understand, Taewon said after hearing everything. Someone is going to kill the one alien who actually likes humans during the most watched event of the year and make it look like natural causes? Yes, Do-hyun confirmed. And the main suspect is the most powerful ambassador on the station, who humiliated you in front of everyone? Also yes. Taewon rubbed his face. Wonderful. Any good news? Vela spoke up. I found traces of the weapon they are using. It is a neural disruptor, very advanced. But I also found something else. She held up a small vial. The compound leaves a specific chemical signature when exposed to certain frequencies of light. If we can identify who has been handling it, we will find the assassin. Can you build a detector? Do-hyun asked. I already did. Vela pulled out a small device that looked like a simple light. This will make the chemical signature visible. Anyone who has touched the compound in the last week will glow slightly under this light. Yuna looked amazed. You built this in 3 days? Vela's scales shifted with embarrassment. I had the parts in my research kit. It was not difficult. Taewon laughed. Not difficult, she says. I like your sister. Do-hyun. I like her too, Do-hyun said with a small smile. Now, here is the plan. They talked for hours, preparing for what came next. The closing ceremony was in 2 days. They had to find the assassin, gather proof, and stop the killing without alerting Crix that they knew. It would not be easy. Crix had power, allies, and resources. They had a blind man, an alien scientist, a diplomat with no authority, and one soldier. But they also had something Crix did not expect: determination. The next day, Do-hyun put the first phase of the plan into action. He attended a public gathering where Ambassador Crix was speaking. He sat in the back, looking weak and defeated. Other guests glanced at him with pity or disgust, but Do-hyun was not there to listen to Crix. He was there to listen to everyone else. As Crix spoke about tradition and power, Do-hyun's ears traveled through the room. He heard heartbeats quicken when certain topics were mentioned. He heard nervous shuffling from specific individuals. He created a mental map of everyone present and their reactions. 3 people showed unusual stress. Their hearts raced when Crix mentioned the closing ceremony. Their breathing changed when he talked about the future of the council. Do-hyun memorized their voices, their footsteps, their heartbeats. He would know them anywhere now. That evening, Vela tested her detector at a cocktail reception. She pretended to be admiring the decorations while secretly scanning the hands of guests who passed near her. Most showed nothing. But one Selvari official glowed faintly when he reached for a drink. She reported to Do-hyun immediately. "I found him. His name is Voreth. He works directly under Crix. Is he the assassin?" "I do not think so." The glow was weak. "He has handled the compound. But not recently. He is probably just part of the supply chain," Do-hyun thought carefully. "We need to find the actual assassin. The one who will carry the weapon into the ceremony. How? There will be thousands of people there. Then we need to make the assassin come to us." Do-hyun's voice was calm but cold. "And I think I know how." He explained his idea. It was dangerous. It might fail completely. But if it worked, they would catch not just the assassin, but the entire conspiracy. Vela listened, her scales changing colors as emotions moved through her. Fear, worry, but also determination. "You are asking me to be bait," she said. "I am asking you to be brave. I know it is not fair. I know you have already suffered enough. But you are the only one who can do this, Vela. They think you are stupid and harmless. That belief will be their weakness." Vela was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her spine and lifted her head. "All my life, people have looked at me and seen nothing." Do-hyun reached out and found her hand. "I will be with you every step. They will not touch you. I promise." "I know, brother. I know." Tomorrow, the trap would be set. And the hunters would become the hunted. Vela had never been a good actress. But fear, as it turned out, did not require much acting. She stood in a quiet corridor near the Selvari embassy section, pretending to examine a decorative plant. Her hands were shaking slightly. Her scales had turned a pale gray color that showed her nervousness clearly. Behind her, hidden in a storage room with the door cracked open, Do-hyun waited in complete darkness. His ears were focused entirely on his sister and everything around her. Taewon was positioned at the far end of the corridor, dressed as a maintenance worker. Yuna monitored the security channels from their quarters, ready to call for help if things went wrong. The trap was simple. Earlier that day, Vela had approached Voreth, the official she had identified with her detector. She had pretended to be lost and confused, asking for directions. During their brief conversation, she had dropped hints that she had overheard something troubling. Something about the closing ceremony. She had acted scared and uncertain. She had asked if she should tell someone. Voreth had smiled kindly and told her not to worry, that it was probably nothing. But his heartbeat, Do-hyun later confirmed, had nearly doubled. Now they waited to see if the bait would attract the fish. An hour passed. Do-hyun remained perfectly still, his breathing slow and controlled. This was something the military had trained him for. Patience. Waiting for the enemy to make a mistake. Finally, he heard footsteps. Light and careful. Someone trying to move quietly but not quite succeeding. The footsteps stopped near Vela. "You are the Morvani," a voice said. It was soft and pleasant, but Do-hyun heard the danger underneath. The one who was asking questions today. Vela turned around quickly, her fear completely genuine. I was just looking at the plants. They are very beautiful." Yes, they are." The speaker moved closer. Do-hyun's ears painted a picture. Tall, slender, moving with the grace of a trained killer. "I understand you overheard something interesting. Something about the ceremony." I do not know what you mean. I should go." "The blind human? He cannot help you." The voice dropped lower. "Tell me exactly what you heard, and perhaps you can walk away from this." Vela backed up until she touched the wall. Her voice trembled. "I heard voices in the night. They talked about a plan, a weapon that cannot be detected. Someone important will die, and no one will know it was murder." Silence. Then the assassin spoke again, all pretense gone from their voice. "You should not have remembered that. The Morvani brain is supposed to be simple, inferior. It seems someone made a mistake. Please, Vela whispered. I will not tell anyone. I promise. I know you will not. Do-hyun heard the sound of a weapon being drawn. A blade. From the way it cut through the air. The assassin was raising it to strike. He moved. The storage room door exploded outward as Do-hyun launched himself into the corridor. His echolocation gave him a perfect picture of where the assassin stood. His body remembered thousands of hours of combat training. Humans, the galaxy often forgot, were predators. They had hunted animals larger and stronger than themselves for millions of years. They had developed endurance that no other species could match. They had evolved to adapt, to survive, to fight in any condition. And Park Do-hyun had been one of Earth's finest soldiers before losing his eyes. After losing them, he had simply become something else. Something more dangerous. The assassin barely had time to turn before Do-hyun's hand closed around their weapon arm. A twist. A snap. And the blade clattered to the floor. The assassin screamed and swung with their other arm. Do-hyun ducked under it, hearing the movement before it happened. In darkness, with no light to see by, the assassin was blind. But Do-hyun lived in darkness. It was his home. He struck twice. Once to the throat, cutting off the scream. Once to the knee, dropping the assassin to the ground. Then he applied pressure to the neck. Not enough to kill, just enough to control. Do not move, he said calmly. I can feel your pulse. If you try anything, I will know before you finish the thought. The assassin gasped for air. You are blind. How? I see more than you will ever understand. Taewon arrived seconds later, securing the assassin's arms behind their back. Vela pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding so hard that Do-hyun could hear it from 3 meters away. Sister, are you hurt? No, I am fine. I was scared, Do-hyun admitted. But fear makes me faster. They dragged the assassin into the storage room. By the dim emergency lights, Taewon could see what they had caught. A silvery female, young and athletic, with the cold eyes of a professional killer. Who sent you? Taewon demanded. The assassin laughed despite her pain. You think this changes anything? The plan is already in motion. You cannot stop it. 1. Do-hyun knelt beside her. He placed his hand on her chest, feeling her heartbeat directly. Let me explain something, he said quietly. I can hear everything your body tells me. I know when you lie. I know when you hide something. You can talk to me now, or you can talk to me after I ask the same question 50 times. Either way, you will tell me the truth. The assassin's heart rate spiked with fear. She had never encountered anything like this. In her world, secrets were kept with the mind. She had not known that the body could betray them. I cannot. They will kill me. They will try to kill you anyway. You failed. Do you think Ambassador Crix keeps failures around? Her heart stuttered at the name. Confirmation. How do you know about Crix? I know many things. I know about the neural disruptor. I know about the plan to kill High Chancellor Morath. I know about the conspiracy to keep humanity out of the Council. Do-hyun leaned closer. What I do not know is the details. Where is the weapon hidden? How will it be delivered? Tell me, and perhaps we can protect you from what comes next. The interrogation lasted an hour. The assassin resisted at first, but Do-hyun was patient. Every lie was caught and called out. Every evasion was noted and circled back to. Slowly, the truth emerged. The weapon was a tiny needle, coated with the neural disruptor compound. It would be fired from a ring worn by one of Crix's inner circle during the closing ceremony. The target was, indeed, High Chancellor Morath. The shot would look like a simple handshake, and Morath would die within hours from what appeared to be natural heart failure. The assassin had been sent tonight to eliminate Vela before she could share what she had overheard. The conspiracy could not risk any loose ends. Who wears the ring? Do-hyun asked. Who fires the shot? The assassin's heart pounded with terror. I do not know his name. Crix calls him the Shadow. He has killed dozens of targets for the Selvari. No one has ever seen his face, but you have met him. Once. He smelled like metal and flowers. A strange combination. He had a voice like ice. That is all I know. I swear. Do-hyun stood up. His mind was working rapidly. Metal and flowers. Ice voice. He would remember. What do we do with her? Taewon asked. We cannot let her go, Vela said. She will warn them. And we cannot kill her, Do-hyun added. We are not murderers. They decided to keep the assassin sedated and hidden until after the ceremony. Taewon would guard her, while the others continued the mission. As they left the storage room, Vela touched Do-hyun's arm. Brother, you saved my life. You put your life in danger for our mission. Saving it was the least I could do. He smiled slightly. Besides, what would I tell Mother if I let something happen to you? Vela laughed, a shaky sound that was half relief and half exhaustion. She would never forgive you. Exactly. They had less than 1 day until the closing ceremony. They knew the method and the target. But they still needed to identify the shooter and gather proof that would convince the assembly. The word of a blind human and an ugly Morvani would not be enough. Do-hyun's mind turned to Vela's hidden talents, the ones the galaxy did not know about. Sister, I need to ask you something important. About your biology. Vela tilted her head. What about it? The Morvani bioluminescence. Can it be used to record images? Vela was quiet for a moment. Then understanding dawned on her face. You want me to be a witness they cannot ignore. Can you do it? Vela looked at her hands, at her rough scaled skin that everyone found so ugly. Inside that skin was technology that no other species had evolved. The ability to capture and store light, the ability to replay it later. Yes, she said finally. I can do it. Tomorrow, the ugly alien would show the galaxy exactly what she was capable of. The morning before the closing ceremony arrived gray and cold. Or at least, that was how Do-hyun imagined it. The station maintained perfect temperature and lighting at all times. But his bones told him this was a day of reckoning. The air felt heavy with coming storms. They gathered in their quarters one final time. Taewon reported that the assassin remained secured and sedated. Yuna had been working through the night, trying to find someone in authority who would listen to their warnings. No one believes me, she said, exhaustion clear in her voice. I spoke to the security chief. He said we had no evidence. I spoke to the human ambassador. He said accusing Crix without proof would destroy our diplomatic position. Everyone is too scared to act. Then we must create proof they cannot ignore, Do-hyun said. Vela, are you ready? Vela sat apart from the others, her eyes closed. She had spent the last several hours practicing something she had not done since childhood. Among the Morvani, bioluminescent recording was considered a sacred ability, used only for important ceremonies. Recording without permission was deeply taboo, but her adopted father had once told her something she never forgot. Sometimes, he said, we must break small rules to protect larger truths. I am ready, she said. Her voice was calm, but her scales rippled with nervous energy. I can record approximately 3 hours of continuous footage. After that, I will need to rest before I can display it. That should be enough, Do-hyun said. The ceremony itself is only 2 hours. Yuna leaned forward. Even if we get proof, how do we stop the assassination? We do not know who the shooter is. No, I will find him, Do-hyun said. The assassin said he smells like metal and flowers. During the ceremony, I will be moving through the crowd. When I identify him, I will signal Taewon. And then what? We grab him in front of everyone? If necessary, yes. But I hope it will not come to that. Do-hyun's face was hard with determination. I hope that once I find him, I can stop him before he fires. They reviewed the plan several more times, checking every detail. There was so much that could go wrong. But there was no more time for preparation. The ceremony would begin in 4 hours. Vela spent those hours walking through the station's public areas, her recording ability activated. She captured images of Crix and his followers. She recorded their conversations, their meetings, their suspicious glances. She gathered evidence that would support their accusations. Later, no one paid attention to her. Why would they? She was just the ugly Morvani, wandering around with nothing better to do. But inside her cells, light was being captured and stored. Every moment, every word, every face. The galaxy's most sophisticated surveillance system was hidden inside skin that everyone found too ugly to look at. Do-hyun used the time differently. He attended a small reception where many of the ceremony's important guests gathered. He moved through the room slowly, letting people ignore him while he listened and smelled. Most of the scents were ordinary: perfumes, foods, the natural odors of various species. But near the end of the reception, something caught his attention: metal and flowers. He turned toward the source. A male figure stood near the refreshment table, speaking quietly with another Selvari. Do-hyun could not see him, but he could build a picture from sound. Tall, athletic build, moved with the grace of a trained warrior. His voice was calm and cold, like ice water flowing over stones. The shadow. Do-hyun memorized everything about him. His heartbeat rhythm, his breathing pattern, the exact sound of his footsteps. When they met again at the ceremony, Do-hyun would know him immediately. He reported to the others through their private communication devices. "I found him. He is posing as a minor Selvari official named Keth. He will be seated in Section 3, directly behind the path that High Chancellor Morath will walk to reach the stage." "That is close enough for a handshake," Yuna said grimly. "Or a pat on the shoulder. Or a simple brush in the crowd." Do-hyun's voice was tight. "The ring needle only needs a moment of contact. Can we have him removed before the ceremony? On what grounds? We have no proof yet. And if we act too early, Crix will know we are aware of the plan. He might have backup assassins ready." They decided to wait. Watch. Be ready to act the moment the threat appeared. The ceremony hall was even larger than the banquet space. Thousands of delegates filled the seats, arranged by species and importance. Floating cameras broadcast the event to billions of viewers across the galaxy. This was meant to be a celebration of unity and progress. Instead, it might become the scene of a murder that changed history. Do-hyun took his position near the edge of Section 3, wearing the simple clothes of a service worker. His cane was folded and hidden in his jacket. To anyone watching, he was just another anonymous servant. Vela sat in the audience section reserved for lesser species. Her recording was active, capturing everything. Beside her, Yuna waited nervously, ready to support whatever came next. Taewon positioned himself near the emergency exits, ready to move in any direction. The ceremony began with music and lights. Various speakers took the stage, offering words of hope and cooperation. High Chancellor Morath sat in a place of honor near the front, his elderly face showing patience and wisdom. Do-hyun did not listen to the speeches. His entire being was focused on one thing: the heartbeat of the shadow. He found it easily. That cold, steady rhythm, like a machine rather than a living being. The shadow was sitting calmly in Section 3, showing no signs of stress or excitement. A true professional. Time passed slowly. Speech followed speech. The ceremony moved toward its conclusion. When High Chancellor Morath would give his final address, he would walk from his seat to the stage, passing directly through Section 3, passing directly by the shadow. Do-hyun moved through the crowd carefully, getting closer. He was 20 meters away when Morath stood up, 15 meters when the Chancellor began walking, 10 meters when the shadow rose from his seat. The shadow's heartbeat finally changed. It quickened slightly, the only sign of preparation. His right hand moved toward Morath. On his finger, a simple metal ring caught the light. Do-hyun pushed forward. He was not going to make it in time. The crowd was too thick. The shadow was too close. Then Vela did something unexpected. She stood up in her section and screamed at the top of her lungs. A terrible, piercing scream that froze everyone in the hall. Every head turned toward her. Every camera shifted focus. Even the shadow hesitated, his hand stopping centimeters from Morath's arm. That hesitation was enough. Do-hyun reached the shadow and grabbed his wrist. He twisted it sharply, forcing the hand away from Morath. His other hand struck the shadow's throat, cutting off any cry. Security personnel rushed toward them. The crowd erupted in confusion. But Do-hyun held on, keeping the shadow's weapon hand immobilized. "Vela, now!" he shouted. Across the hall, Vela closed her eyes and concentrated. Her scales began to glow. Light poured from her skin, projecting images into the air above her head. The entire hall watched in stunned silence as recordings played. Crix meeting with conspirators. The shadow receiving his instructions. The assassin they had captured confessing the plot. Financial records. Communication logs. Every piece of evidence Vela had gathered over the past days, displayed for all to see. The gallery fell into chaos. Delegates shouted in shock and anger. Security forces moved to surround Crix, who stood frozen with disbelief on his face. "This is impossible," he whispered. "She is just a stupid Morvani." "How?" High Chancellor Morath approached Vela slowly. His old eyes studied her glowing form with wonder. "Young one," he said gently, "you have done something remarkable today." Vela's scales slowly returned to normal as the recording ended. She was trembling with exhaustion, barely able to stand. But she met the Chancellor's eyes without fear. "I only showed the truth," she said. "That is all I know how to do." Morath turned to look at Do-hyun, who still held the struggling shadow in a control grip. "And you, young human, how did you know where to be?" Do-hyun smiled slightly. "I listened, Chancellor. I listened very carefully." The security forces took the shadow into custody. Across the hall, Crix was being surrounded by armed guards. His followers were trying to slip away, but finding every exit blocked, the ceremony was ruined. The summit was thrown into chaos. But High Chancellor Morath was alive, and the galaxy had just learned something important about humans and their allies. Yuna reached Vela and caught her before she could fall. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Vela looked at her brother, who was finally releasing the shadow to the security forces. Even without sight, she knew he was looking back at her. "We did it together," she said softly. "Always together." The great hall had transformed from a place of ceremony into a place of judgment. Security forces stood at every entrance. Floating cameras continued to broadcast, carrying the images across the galaxy. Billions watched as history was rewritten before their eyes. Ambassador Crix stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by guards. His silver robes, once a symbol of power and prestige, now seemed like chains. His followers had been arrested or had fled. His conspiracy lay exposed for all to see. But Crix had not survived centuries of galactic politics by giving up easily. "This is absurd," he declared, his voice still smooth and confident. "You cannot seriously believe this. This performance? Recordings can be faked. Testimonies can be purchased. You are being manipulated by humans and their pet creature." Murmurs ran through the crowd. Some delegates nodded in agreement. The Selvari were old and powerful. Many still feared them. High Chancellor Morath raised his hand for silence. "The evidence seems quite detailed, Ambassador. Perhaps you would like to explain why your official was carrying a weapon designed to kill me." "That creature is not my official. I have never seen him before." Do-hyun stepped forward. He walked slowly, his cane tapping against the floor. Guards moved to stop him, but Morath waved them back. "You have never seen him before," Do-hyun repeated. "That is an interesting claim, Ambassador. It is the truth, blind man. But I do not expect a defective human to understand truth. Let me tell you what I understand." Do-hyun's voice was quiet but carried through the hall. "I understand that your heart rate just increased by 23%. I understand that your breathing has become shallow and rapid. I understand that the micro-tremors in your voice indicate deception." Crix laughed. But the sound was hollow. "You expect anyone to believe this? A blind human claims to detect lies by listening? I do not expect anything. I only report what I hear." Do-hyun turned toward the crowd. "In the 5 days I have spent on this station, I have listened to thousands of conversations. I have memorized hundreds of heartbeats. And I have learned that Ambassador Crix has met with the assassin known as the Shadow 7 times. Gasps from the audience. Crix's face darkened. "You cannot prove that." "No. But I can describe each meeting. The first was in your private quarters. 3 days ago. You discussed the weapon and the target. The Shadow asked about payment, and you promised him a province on your homeworld. Your heart rate was steady throughout. You were confident, comfortable with murder. Lies. All lies. The second meeting was in the garden section, near the fountain that makes the sound of falling rain. You reviewed the ceremony schedule. You discussed backup plans in case the first attempt failed. The Shadow suggested poisoning the Chancellor's food, but you rejected it as too risky." Crix was pale now. His hands trembled slightly. "How could you possibly know this? You were not there. No one was there." "I was there," Do-hyun said simply. "You simply did not see me. Why would you? I am just a blind human. Harmless. Useless." He smiled coldly. "That is what you believed, was it not?" The hall was completely silent. Every eye was fixed on the confrontation. Crix seemed to gather himself. He straightened his spine and lifted his chin with arrogance that came from centuries of power. "Even if any of this were true, you cannot stop what has already begun. Humanity will never be accepted into the Council. You are newcomers, primitive. You do not belong among the civilized species. And who decides what is civilized?" She walked forward to stand beside her brother. Her scales were still dull from exhaustion, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. "You look at me and see an ugly creature. You look at my brother and see a broken man. You judge by surfaces because you are too lazy or too scared to look deeper." She pointed at Crix. "But you are the ugly one, Ambassador. Your heart is twisted with hatred and fear. Your mind plots murder while speaking of peace. You are ugly in ways that cannot be seen, but are far more terrible than my face." Crix's composure finally broke. Rage twisted his features into something monstrous. "How dare you speak to me this way? You are nothing. A lesser species. Your people were savages, while mine ruled empires. You should be grateful we even allow you to exist. And yet here I stand," Vela said calmly. "Here I stand. Having exposed your conspiracy. Here I stand. Having saved a life you tried to take. Here I stand, having done what none of your superior species bothered to do." She smiled slightly. "Perhaps being lesser has its advantages." Crix lunged toward her. Guards caught him, but he struggled against their grip. "I will destroy you," he snarled. "I will destroy your entire species. I will burn your homeworld to ash. I will. Dupt. You will do nothing." High Chancellor Morath's voice cut through Crix's threats like a blade through cloth. The old leader stepped forward, his presence commanding instant attention. "Ambassador Crix, you are hereby stripped of your diplomatic status. You will face trial for attempted assassination, conspiracy, and crimes against the Assembly. Your assets will be frozen, Your allies will be investigated. Your house will answer for your actions. You cannot do this, Crix whispered. My species will never allow it. This means war. Your species has already been contacted, Morath replied. The evidence has been shared with your government. They are displeased. It seems you acted without their approval. They have chosen to distance themselves from your actions, rather than defend them. Crix's face went white, abandoned by his own people. His greatest fear realized. As guards led him away, he turned back one last time. His eyes found Do-hyun and Vela. You trusted a blind cripple and an ugly beast over me? He screamed. Over me? Morath replied before anyone else could speak. No, Ambassador. We trusted a warrior and a scientist over a traitor. We trusted courage over cruelty. We trusted truth over power. He looked at the siblings with warmth. And we were right to do so. Crix was dragged from the hall, still screaming threats and curses. His voice faded until only silence remained. The crowd began to murmur again. Delegates discussed what they had witnessed. The cameras continued to broadcast. Do-hyun felt exhaustion wash over him. The tension that had sustained him for days finally began to release. His hands shook slightly. Then Vela's arm linked with his, warm and steady. Brother, she said softly. We did it, he agreed. Yuna and Taewon joined them. For a moment, the four of them simply stood together, surrounded by the chaos of a moment that had changed galactic history. High Chancellor Morath approached them. Despite his age, his eyes were bright with energy. I owe you my life, he said. All of you. But especially you two. He looked at Do-hyun and Vela. The galaxy judged you harshly. They saw only your differences, your perceived weaknesses. They never imagined you would be their salvation. We only did what was right, Vela said. And that is precisely why you succeeded. Morath smiled. Doing what is right is often harder than doing what is easy. You chose the difficult path and walked it with courage. He turned to address the entire hall. His voice carried to every corner. Today, we witnessed something remarkable. A conspiracy was exposed. A life was saved. And we learned a valuable lesson about judgment and assumption. He paused. We learned that strength comes in many forms, that wisdom can hide in unexpected places, that the beings we dismiss might be the ones who save us. He looked back at Do-hyun and Vela. Tomorrow, the Council will vote on humanity's membership. But I think we all already know how that vote will go. Applause began. First, from one section, then another. Soon the entire hall was clapping. Delegates who had laughed at them days ago now stood in respect. Do-hyun could not see the applause, but he could hear it. Waves of sound washing over him. Thousands of hands creating thunder. Beside him, Vela's scales were flushing with color. Embarrassment and pride mixed together. They are actually clapping, she whispered. For us. She whispered. She whispered. For you. Do-hyun corrected. You were the one who screamed like a demon and projected evidence from your skin. I just punched one person. Vela laughed. A real laugh, bright and free. The sound of someone who had finally found acceptance. The applause continued. And somewhere in the galaxy, billions watched as a blind human and his ugly alien sister took their first steps into a new era. 3 days after the ceremony, the Galactic Council held its historic vote. For the first time in 2 centuries, a new species was being considered for full membership. Do-hyun and Vela watched from a private viewing gallery as the votes were counted. They were not alone. Yuna stood with them, wearing her finest diplomatic uniform. Taewon leaned against the wall, pretending not to be nervous. High Chancellor Morath himself had invited them to share this moment. One by one, the species cast their votes. The Selvari, desperate to distance themselves from Crix's disgrace, voted in favor. The Corvani, humanity's former enemies, surprised everyone by supporting membership. Even the oldest and most traditional species found reasons to say yes. When the final count was announced, the result was overwhelming. Humanity had been accepted into the council by the largest margin in history. The viewing gallery erupted in celebration. Yuna burst into tears of joy. Taewon actually hugged Do-hyun, something he had never done before. Morath nodded with quiet satisfaction. But Do-hyun's attention was on his sister. Vela stood apart from the others, watching the celebration with wonder in her eyes. Her scales shifted through colors faster than he had ever heard them move, her body expressing emotions too complex for words. He walked to her side. "Sister, are you all right?" "I do not know," she admitted. "I never thought I would see this day. I never thought humans would be accepted. I certainly never thought I would have anything to do with it. You had everything to do with it. We both did." She took his hand. "Brother, I need to tell you something. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. What is it?" Vela was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "When I was a child, after the crash, I was so scared. Everyone looked at me with fear or disgust. I thought I would die alone, surrounded by creatures who hated me." She squeezed his hand. "Then your family found me. Your mother held me and told me I was safe. Your father said I would always have a home. And you were just a boy. But you looked at me like I was normal. Like I was just a person. You were just a person. You still are. I know that now. But back then, I did not. I thought I was a monster." Tears formed in her eyes. "You taught me otherwise. Do-hyun, you and your family taught me that what I look like does not matter. Only what I do matters. Only who I am matters." Do-hyun reached up and touched her face. He could not see her tears, but he could feel them against his fingertips. "Vela, listen to me. You are not ugly. You never were. The galaxy's standards are foolish and shallow. They measure beauty by symmetry and smoothness. They miss everything important." He smiled. "To me, you are beautiful. Your kindness is beautiful. Your courage is beautiful. Your brilliant mind is beautiful. Everything that makes you who you are is beautiful." Vela's scales flushed with warmth. "You cannot even see me, brother. I see you better than anyone. I see you with my ears, with my hands, with my heart. And I would not trade my sister for all the perfect faces in the universe." They stood together in silence for a moment. Outside, the celebration continued. But in that quiet space, something important was happening. Two broken beings, finding wholeness in each other. The next week was filled with ceremonies and celebrations. Humanity was officially welcomed into the council. Treaties were signed. Trade agreements were negotiated. The future that had seemed impossible was now becoming reality. But the most important ceremony happened on the final day. High Chancellor Morath called a special session to honor those who had saved his life and exposed the conspiracy. The Great Hall was filled once again, but this time with different energy. Hope instead of fear, gratitude instead of suspicion. Do-hyun and Vela stood on the main stage, uncomfortable with the attention but unable to escape it. Morath spoke to the assembled delegates. "A week ago, I almost died. A conspiracy that had been building for years came within seconds of succeeding. If not for the courage and intelligence of two beings that this galaxy had dismissed and mocked, I would not be standing here today." He turned to look at the siblings. Park Do-hyun lost his sight serving his people. Many would have given up. Many would have accepted a life of limitation. Instead, he developed abilities that our best agents could not match. He moved through this station like a ghost, gathering intelligence that our entire security apparatus missed. He showed us that disability is not inability. That human adaptability is perhaps the greatest weapon in the galaxy. Applause rippled through the hall. Vela Park was adopted by a human family when her own people could not save her. She was raised on a world that often treated her with cruelty because of her appearance. Yet, she became a brilliant scientist. She possessed abilities that our researchers never bothered to discover, simply because they never bothered to study species they considered inferior. Morath's voice grew stronger. She showed us our own arrogance. She showed us that every species has gifts. If only we have the wisdom to look. The applause grew louder. Today, I am pleased to announce two things. First, humanity is granted full council membership, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. He paused as cheers erupted. Second, the Morvani species is elevated to protected research partner status. Any who harm them will answer to the full power of the council, and any who take the time to truly know them will find allies of remarkable capability. The hall exploded with applause. Do-hyun heard it wash over them like waves. After the ceremony, they walked together through the station's gardens. It was quiet here, away from the celebrations and the crowds. What happens now? Vela asked. We go home. Do-hyun said. We see mother and father. We rest. We heal. And after that? Do-hyun smiled. There is a big galaxy out there, sister. Lots of places where beings like us are still being overlooked, still being underestimated. He shrugged. Someone should probably do something about that. Vela laughed. You want to keep fighting? Not fighting exactly, more like showing. Showing the galaxy what they miss when they judge by surfaces. Showing them what hidden strength looks like. They walked in companionable silence for a while. The station hummed around them. Ships came and went. Life continued. A small figure approached them. It was a child, maybe 8 years old by human standards, from a species Do-hyun did not recognize. Large eyes, blue skin, shy expression. The child stopped in front of Vela and stared up at her with open curiosity. Are you the hero? The child asked. The one who saved the Chancellor? Vela knelt down to the child's level. My brother and I did it together. The child reached out and touched Vela's scaled face. Vela held perfectly still. My friends say you look scary, the child said. But I think you look beautiful. Like a dragon from the old stories. Dragons were always the bravest ones. Ended. Vela's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saying that. The child smiled brightly and ran off to join waiting parents. Vela stood slowly, wiping her eyes. Do-hyun put his arm around her shoulders. Are you okay? I am better than okay. Her voice was thick, but happy. Brother, that was the first time someone I did not know called me beautiful. It will not be the last. The galaxy is starting to see you clearly now. They continued walking, eventually reaching a viewing platform that looked out at the stars. Do-hyun could not see them, but he knew they were there. Points of light scattered across infinite darkness, each one a sun. Many with worlds around them. Countless beings living countless lives. Taewon asked me something earlier, Vela said. He asked what we plan to do next. Whether we have another galaxy to save. What did you tell him? Vela was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke with quiet certainty. I told him that wherever they underestimate us, that is where we go. Do-hyun nodded slowly. That sounds right. Together, he turned toward his sister. He could not see her face, but he knew exactly what expression she wore. Determination. Hope. Love. Always together, he said. Until the very end. Vela took his hand. Behind them, the station hummed with life. Above them, the stars waited, and in the darkness of space, a blind human and his alien sister looked toward the future they would build together. A future where no one would ever be judged by surfaces again. A future they had earned. A future they deserved.